Overnight, markets and geopolitics remain tightly linked as the Iran war continues to drive energy prices and risk sentiment. Oil has surged to around $110 a barrel, and the Financial Times reports stocks and bonds have fallen together, leaving diversified portfolios with fewer places to hide. The U.S. president has extended a deadline tied to potential strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure until April 6, but the move has not calmed markets. Separately, the FT reports Iran is exploring ways to monetize the Strait of Hormuz, including proposals to charge fees and restrict passage for non-hostile ships, a signal that disruption risk could persist even beyond active fighting. Diplomatically, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is at G7 talks with Iran expected to dominate the agenda. The BBC reports the UN human rights chief is urging the U.S. to conclude its probe into a strike on a school in Iran that killed at least 168 people, mostly children, intensifying scrutiny of conduct and accountability. Al Jazeera reports Iranian football players have publicly honored children killed in the Minab school airstrike, underscoring the conflict's domestic resonance. In Europe and the Middle East, Al Jazeera reports growing opposition within Israel is raising questions about the government's strategy in southern Lebanon. On the cyber front, Al Jazeera reports an Iran-linked group claims it hacked the FBI Director Kash Patel's emails and photos, highlighting the expanding digital dimension of state-linked conflict. In Russia, Al Jazeera reports the protagonist of an Oscar-winning documentary has been declared a foreign agent, reflecting continued pressure on dissent and independent narratives. On artificial intelligence and the technological revolution, Europe is moving on child online safety. The BBC reports Austria has become the latest country to propose a social media ban for children under 14, following similar steps elsewhere. The Financial Times also flags the security challenge of online radicalization, reporting MI5 is dealing with an increasing caseload of children at risk, with behavioral science being used to understand pathways into extremism. Turning to Australia, the Iran war's spillover is now a live political and economic issue. The Conversation reports Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has issued a tit-for-tat response to President Trump's criticism of Australia over the Iran war, saying there had been no request Australia had not agreed to. Domestically, The Guardian's Back-to-Back Barry's podcast argues a fuel crisis could worsen against Labour, with implications for budget settings and the appetite for tax reform, and notes the strategic risks for the Liberals around preference deals. On regulation and public administration, The Conversation reports the TGA is proposing an overhaul of sunscreen labels, including options that would remove SPF numbers altogether, a change that would affect consumer information, compliance and industry marketing. On the Australian economy and share market, the key near-term watch is energy. With oil elevated, investors will be weighing inflation pass-through, transport costs and the outlook for rate settings, alongside likely support for local energy producers and pressure on fuel-intensive sectors. Finally, on local safety, ABC reports police were called to the Canberra Centre after teenagers allegedly brandished knives and a hammer during a disturbance on Friday evening. That's the latest on the major developments to start the day.